at the end of the day, whether you're having a psychedelic experience or a near-death experience or you're talking to aliens, these are all mystical experiences. They are contact with a mystical dimension of reality. I know that there are people in the UFO community who would say, no, there's nothing mystical about it. These are nuts and bolts spacecraft from other planets. And maybe that's true of some of them. I don't want to dismiss that entirely, but to the extent that those nuts and bolts spacecraft from other planets are piloted by intelligent beings, those intelligent beings come from a culture where they have their own sense of their place in the universe, and which is ultimately going to incorporate a mystical dimension to it. Let's look at it from the point of view of a conventional science for a moment. Most scientists would say that it's very unlikely that we're in contact with alien beings, because the other star systems that could support intelligent civilization are light years away. And how are they going to get here? Even if they travel at the speed of light, it would take years. The alternative to that, of course, is invoking modern physics and talking about quantum wormholes and space-time warping, warp speed, these things faster than light travel. There are all of these ideas. And then you have to say to yourself, hyperspace becomes an important part of it. So chances are that beings from distant star systems that are able to easily travel to Earth and pilot these craft that can easily outmaneuver our most advanced aircraft and rockets and so on, they have a knowledge of hyperspace. They have a knowledge of higher dimensions, and they know how to travel through them. And as soon as you begin to get into hyperspatial dimensions, you can begin to look at dimensions of time as well, and dimensions of consciousness. They're all interrelated. So an advanced civilization capable of having adequate science to travel here from a distant star system will have knowledge of all of these things. And that knowledge will include a knowledge of the afterlife. We are, you could say, a very primitive culture, our so-called modern culture. We believe there is no such thing as an afterlife, in spite of the overwhelming evidence. So I often say to myself, if it exists, which I'm sure it does, it has to exist somewhere. And since it's not in three-dimensional space-time, it's going to be in hyperspace. And we have a very well worked out mathematics of hyperspace. It's the same mathematics that would be involved, for example, in plotting rocket trajectories and so on, and understanding, cosmology from a conventional perspective right now, or string theory. They all involve hyperspace. To add yet another wrinkle is that for over 150 years now, going back to 1800s to the report of seances, there has been a convergence of communication between the deceased and what we could think of as alien beings.
Right.
They used to appear together. Alien beings showed up in the 19th century seances, and dead people show up in UFO abductions. So there is this overlap, and until we develop sufficient scientific sophistication to be able to incorporate that into our mainstream way of thinking, we're not going to be ready to join the, let me put it this way, the Galactic Federation of Spacefaring Cultures. If we weren't already teetering on the edge of self-destruction, we might be able to simply evolve into a spacefaring civilization. But it does seem that we're not going to get there until we reverse course somehow. I've been following the UFO field since I was a child. I began reading every UFO book I could find at the age of 10 and writing letters to the authors back there using crayons. and they would write back to me. So one can say that there's always been a public side to it and a government side to it. And there have been very, very slow and grudging leaks over the years from the government side, because even within the government, there are different camps. There are camps within the government that say this is of important military significance, and whatever we learn about it will give us a huge military edge, so it has to be a top secret, maybe even above top secret, above top secret. And it has to stay that way. And then there are other people in the government who say, no, the public needs to know. This is the potentially the greatest discovery in the history of humanity, and people have a right to know. Over the years, slowly, grudgingly, there have been acknowledgement from government figures, but not a lot. And I expect it'll continue to be only very limited and very slow coming from the government itself. They don't want to give away any potential military advantage that there might be from understanding these things. And that's probably true of many governments. However, anybody who wants to study the civilian literature, it's vast. It's like the literature for life after death. There you're talking about thousands and thousands of bits of information coming from everywhere. And so it's not really hidden, but most people are concerned with bread and butter issues. They've got to put food on the table. They've got to support their families, put their kids through college, and save up for their retirement. So to pay attention to issues like consciousness, mysticism, the paranormal, UFOs, it's luxury for most people. I like to think of it in really large terms. For example, I had one interviewee who said, to really master the game takes about 35,000 lifetimes. Very few people are going to get through it in one lifetime. I have a feeling I'm just beginning. I look at my body and I realize that this body is actually billions of years old. I contain within my body the whole evolutionary history of life on Earth. I'm composed of billions of individual cells, and even within the cells there are microorganisms, the mitochondria, for example. And evolutionary history, all of it is contained right here in my body. So I may not be conscious of it, but I can acknowledge that within this body is billions of years of evolutionary history. So 35,000 more lifetimes doesn't seem like so much. I think it's always helpful to try and see things from the biggest picture possible.